Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, hi, my name's Kara. If it's not, welcome back. Great to have you. Love it. Love to see your face every single video. So today's video, I am so excited about this. The whole Spotify Wrapped thing has become very much a trend on the internet. Like on TikTok, people are doing like their dating wraps or Wrapped 2022, and I have really enjoyed that content. I think it's hilarious. And one of my best friends was like, hey, you should do a reading wrapped, like Spotify Wrapped edition. And I was like, genius. Shout out to Bridget. So today I thought, what better way to wrap up my reading year than Spotify Wrapped reading edition, full PowerPoints, everything. We are doing it all. Before we get into the video, if it's your first time here, happy to have you. So glad you're here. But if you have watched a few of my videos and you are enjoying my content, I would love it if you would hit the subscribe button. Really appreciate it. And I just want to have you in my community. And thank you for being here. I just appreciate you. So without further ado, we have Kara's Bookshelf 2022, Spotify Wrapped, not Spotify, Reading Wrapped. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying, okay? Starting off here, first slide. Number of books read, 42. 42 books read. You know, my Goodreads goal for this year was 40, so I'd say that I did pretty well. I did have a few DNFs that we will be talking about later, but overall 42 books. I am actually pretty okay with that. It's still mid-December and I am currently reading like 2 other books, so hopefully it will get to like 44, maybe 45. I'd be really happy with that. But 42, not complaining. I honestly feel like that's a pretty decent number for me. That's probably about like 3 to 4 books a month. Not technically 4, maybe about 3 books a month. Considering I was kind of all over the place this year with my mental health, 42, go me, pat on the back. Way to go, Kara. And that sums up to a total of 15,605 pages read. Not bad. Not bad for me at all. Pretty proud of myself on that one as well. For reference, 2021 and 2020 reading stats up here, I have tracked those as well. And so 2021, I read 15,072 pages, read 34 books. And then 2020, I read 48 books and 18,387 pages. So honestly, I'm in the ballpark of what I read over the last few years. So staying pretty consistent, like pretty much right on par with 2021. And 2021, I did read a lot of like epic high fantasy that was like 1,000 pages plus long per book. You know, honestly, I feel like books read is a rough estimate sometimes, because if you read a 1,000-page book, that's literally the equivalent of like 4 books. So it's all relative, isn't it? Staying pretty on par with my last few reading years, and I'm guessing that I will probably do the same thing next year unless I have some crazy burst that allows me to read more than this. But my life isn't changing. Actually, it's getting busier next year considering I'm getting married, so likely it's gonna stay the same. All right, next up, we have books versus month. This is like how many books I read per month. And as you can see, I mean, it is pretty stable, except the month of April. It looks like I read 7 books. That was a great reading month for me. Had another little bit of a dip down towards the end of the year, and that is because seasonal depression. It's been a rough past month or so, and living in the Midwest where it gets dark at 4:30 outside and I get done at work at 5, it's been rough lately, okay? Yeah, not much really wanting to read anytime soon, not much of wanting to do anything except play Disney Dreamlight Valley, so that's been my life lately. I am truly working on it, and give me a thumbs up if you can relate. Why do I live in the Midwest? I don't know. Next slide. So this is just a slide summing up the different genres that I read. Oh, by the way, if you do not recognize these charts, I'm going to recommend you check out Allie from Hardback Hoarder. She puts out a free reading stats spreadsheet that you can download every year. I've used it every single year since I got into reading. Highly recommend. She does such a good job on it. I literally could never. Just shout out to her. I'm gonna leave it linked down below and her channel linked down below if you are interested in checking it out for next year. But overall genres. This was one that I was kind of interested in seeing because if I think about like internally, if I think about who I am at my core, I think of myself as a fantasy reader and as a literary fiction reader. But my genres this year say a little bit differently, and I think I know where I can contribute this to. My Lit fic reading was way down this year, real low compared to other years, and that saddens my soul. Fantasy was obviously my biggest genre, not mad about that at all. So this is the first year I started BookTube, right? Like I just am starting to get into it, and if you've just watched a lot of BookTube, you know that fantasy is like such a big deal on BookTube. Like I am genuinely saying I love fantasy, but like it's really easy to get trapped into reading a bunch of fantasy when you're a creator on BookTube. Not a bad thing at all. I just really want my reading life to be a little bit more spread out going on in my BookTube life. You know, like I want to make sure that I am equally spreading my reading out between fantasy and other genres that I'm interested in as well. So this graph does sadden me because I want to have more literary fiction in my life. I feel like that is a genre that I truly love, and I feel like it helps me introspectively reflect on myself as a person. I need to prioritize that more, that I actually am reading books that I want to read and not just books that I feel like I have to read. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I'm going on a total tangent here. Regardless, fantasy is my top genre, and then the next top genre was historical fiction, which is wild. Like I literally didn't, no, that's a lie. It's not historical fiction, it's romance. What the F? It's romance? What? How? I personally do not, I feel like I don't identify myself as a romance girly, but my reading clearly says otherwise. Here's my top 5. We had fantasy, graphic novels, historical, romance, and lit fic. Well, it's technically not lit fic. Lit fic is tied with, it looks like sci-fi and nonfiction. Technically top 4 is fantasy, historical, romance, graphic novels, and then it's tied between those 3, lit fic, sci-fi, and nonfiction. Cannot believe romance is my second most read genre this year. I literally cannot believe it. Like, I'm glad I tried to venture out, but at the same time, like, I want to reel it back into like the stuff that I genuinely want to read, you know? Moving on. Audience, the intended audience. I'm an adult reader, hands down. We have adult at 71%. Not surprised. I've read a little bit of new adult, but like genuinely, I don't like love reading YA. I just don't identify with it anymore. So not surprised on this at all. Next one we have here is publication years. I don't know how much this graph genuinely like helps me reflect on my reading, but I thought this was an interesting graph to put in here because, okay, 2022, biggest chunk of the pie at 18.4%. Okay, and then we have 2021 and 2020 as like bigger chunks of the pie. But 2014, what? Why is 2014 tied with 2021 and 2020? What happened in 2014? Well, I'll tell you. That's what happened in 2014. I looked at that and I was like, why? And then it made me curious as to what was happening in pop culture in 2014, and that's what happened. Kim Ye, Fault in Our Stars, and the epic Oscars photo. Just an interesting little fun fact. Okay, next we have format. Truly, this graph I feel like is not very representative of my reading because I tend to read audio and physical at the same time. Like I tend to have a physical copy of the book and then I usually will listen to the audio, and I get the audio from either Audible or from my library. I don't know, I just like to be able to, if I'm in my car, like driving or whatever, I want to be able to listen to my book or read my book. Although it says physical, that's the majority of what I read with each books. But if I know for a fact, if I put combined on there, that would be the highest, for sure. No questions. Next we have here is author status, and over 50% is people that I have read before. And I'm gonna contribute that a lot to the fact that I read a handful of continuations of series this year, not like a ton of them, but I need to diversify that. I genuinely want to read more authors that are like new to me or debut authors, but here's the thing. I feel like this is me trying to have an excuse, but I feel like when I get really attached, when I really like an author, I like to read the backlist that they have. And also, if you have anxiety, you know that like you tend to want to read or watch stuff that is something that you've read before or like watched before, and that gives you a lot of comfort. Not that I'm contributing it to that, but at the same time, that would be interesting because I definitely suffer from anxiety a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised that I gravitate towards things that I'm familiar with. Just an interesting little stat. Okay, next slide. Series stats. Okay, so the green, although it doesn't say on here, the green is just a standalone novel. But basically I read a lot of standalones. 38% are part of a series. I'm not surprised about that. I'm not like I read series, but it's gotta be a series that I am like gripped on, you know? I need to absolutely love a series for me to continue it. And so not really surprised about that. No shockers there. Where did I source the books from? I own a lot of books, and which is great because this shows that I'm reading my actual books. We have 73% are books that I own. Proud of that. I need to be reading books that I own. And also the second biggest stat is from the library. I genuinely love my library. Shout out. And I'm really happy that I am actually reading books that are free from the library. I like supporting my local library. I need to do it more. And honestly, I wish I could get some more of that owned TBR down and get that library reading up. That would be great. But I genuinely do like audiobooks on the library are my thing. Absolutely love it. Would recommend Libby if you do not have that already. All right, star ratings. This is the stat that is interesting. My biggest chunk is 5 stars. Girl, I am so happy about that. So pleased about that. Glad to be reading books that are mostly 5 stars. And also, if you look at the entire thing as a whole, most of my reading is 3.5 stars and up. So I am gonna give myself a pat on the back for that. Not reading books that I don't like, and I am choosing to DNF books that I don't like. I have a big chunk that I did DNF, which I'll be talking about in a little bit, but I am so happy about that, to be honest with you, okay? Way to go, we did it. Next up, my 5-star reads. Here are just some examples of 5-star reads. Actually, I have all of them on here, so if you're interested, stay tuned. Throne of Glass, amazing. Babel, Bunny, entire series of Heartstopper. This was my Heartstopper year. I love that series to my core. Other 5-star reads, we only had 10 5-star reads in total. I'm glad my mom died, Normal People, and Oathbringer. And I wanted to include an honorary mention, Crying in H Mart. Technically, I gave this a no rating because it's a memoir, and although I'm glad my mom died is also a memoir too, but it was so good. And Crying in H Mart, so good. Technically I didn't rate it, but I wanted to put it in there because it was incredible, and I think that people should read it for real. If you follow my channel, you're like, where's Magnolia Parks? Where's Magnolia Parks? I have some explaining to do. What about Magnolia Parks? What about it? Well, I ended up doing a little bit of self-reflection as I was looking back on my reading this year, and I was looking at the 5 stars that I gave. I tend to change ratings a lot, okay? I decided 4.5. And here's what I have to say. I feel like when I was looking at my 5-star reads, those are books that, like, you know when you get a 5-star read feel and you're like, this book hits to the core? As I have gone away from this book, it's dwindled. It's dwindled down. And I don't know, that's just how I feel. I can't explain it any other way, that it just wasn't the 5-star feel that I got with the other books that are 5 stars. So 4.5, still really great rating. Definitely am going to be continuing with the series, but it hasn't sat with me the way that a 5-star should sit with me. You know what I mean? Okay, next one. Red versus DNFs. This kind of, we've already talked about a little bit, but I have an 11.9% DNF rate. Again, really proud about that because I used to never DNF books. And now I'm like, if I have been reading you for at least 25% and I do not care about the plot, or I am genuinely struggling to pick this up, DNF. Not worth my time, not worth my reading. I only read 40 books a year. I don't have time for books that I don't love, you know? So now we're gonna go through my DNFs. All right, those are all my DNFs. We have The Last Song. That was a pity. Used to love that one, and that was just bad. DNF'd at page 200. The God of Small Things, DNF'd at page 70. I thought that I was gonna be coming back to that one, but now that I've gotten farther away from it, I'm not. I don't think I'm coming back to that one. We have Rock Addiction and Utopia Avenue. Just stay tuned for my thoughts on those in another video. And then All the Ugly Unnoticeable Things. I think I did a reading vlog with this one. DNF'd it at 25%. Could not get over the fact that there was like grooming, I guess. Oh God, what is the term? You know what I'm talking about. It's about a man who falls in love with like an 8-year-old, and it's just like I couldn't get past it. And I know some people really love that book, but like I could not do it. Okay, crying stats. Because if you follow my channel, you know I'm a big crier. We love emotion. Books I cried reading. Dry eyes. We have 81% dry eyes. 81. I need this number to be smaller, okay? I want to cry in like every book I read. That's when you know it's a good book. We have one single tear was 9.5%. And when I say one single tear, I mean literally one single tear streamed down my face, got teary-eyed, and one single tear fell. Ugly cry. That is the Kim K. That is me on the couch just bawling my eyes out, makeup smeared all over my face. We have 9.5%, which is pretty good. I'm not mad about that. And like, if a book can make me cry, automatic, amazing. Speaking of crying stats, here's all the books I ugly cried in. Just ugly cried. And I put Heartstopper as like, that one encompasses pretty much all of the Heartstopper, especially number 1 and number 4 are the ones that made me cry the most. I was crying. To Paradise, ugly cried, even though I did not like super love that book, did ugly cry in that one. Under the Whispering Door, ugly cried. Babel, ugly cried. Before the Coffee Gets Cold, ugly cry. I was not well, had to put that book down for a week before I could continue. One single tear. These are the ones I did once. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I ugly cried at Heartstopper Volume 1. Turns out I didn't. I ugly cried at the show. And then I also ugly cried at the show for normal people. But crying in H Mart, if I read that book physically, would have ugly cried 100%. I listened to it on audio, which was really great, but I have a harder time crying in books when I'm listening to them versus physically reading. I tend to cry more when I'm physically reading a book. Also, Assassin's Blade. I did have one single tear shed, and you know why. If you've read the series. If you have not watched Normal People or Heartstopper, just go do it. You need to do it. Top book. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Gotta wait till my next video. I will be doing a top 5 books. If you are interested in the books that I am like super love, just go back to those 5-star reads. All of them were amazing, but I'm gonna be giving my top 5 in the next video. And I hope you guys love this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Give me some of your favorite stats down below. I would love to hear them. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!